Hey guys, today I'm going to be ranking all of the historical fiction and fantasy TV series that I watched in 2021. I am a sucker for television, you guys. And I do love all genres when it comes to television, but my specific favorite television shows tend to be somewhere in regards to something that's either historical fiction or fantasy. So I was like, I watched a lot of historical fiction and fantasy TV series in 2021, so I'm going to rank all of it as best as I can. So what I've decided to do with this video, this ranking, if you will, I have divided it up into 3 videos. So it's going to be released just kind of throughout the week, all 3 videos. So yeah, let's get going. Let's start with the guidelines, if you will, for this video. First up, this is all going to be historical fiction and fantasy TV series only. I was originally going to do historical fiction only, but then I was like, I'm going to go ahead and add fantasy in there because a lot of times fantasy tends to have kind of like a historical fiction aesthetic anyway. So that's why I decided to go ahead and include fantasy on this list as well. Second, anything set before the 2000s is included in this list. As you watch all 3 of these videos, there's going to be several TV series included on this list that are set in the 1990s. So yeah, as long as any show is set before the 2000s, it was up for game for this list. Third, these rankings are based on my personal enjoyment and the entertainment that I got from each specific show. So yeah, it is all very personal to me, the entertainment I got out of it, the emotional level of that I got out of it. And yeah, in a way, the ranking almost doesn't matter to some degree, and in a way, the ranking is just really for me to keep things organized and in terms of how I want to talk about things. But yeah, as far as the rankings go, you're either going to agree or disagree. It's called opinions, obviously. And yeah, some of these shows, depending on my mood, some of them can flip up and down throughout the ranking. Who knows? But yeah, this is just the ranking as I saw fit for me personally. Fourth, all of the series included on this list were all shows that I did watch in 2021, and that includes shows that not only were released in 2021, but if I happened to watch something for the very first time in 2021, even if it was released years ago. So everything is up for grabs in this video. So, with the guidelines out of the way, let's get going. And yeah, this is part 1 of the video. Make sure you check out parts 2 and 3. At number 32, Death and Nightingales. This 3-part series follows a young woman in 1885 in the Irish countryside who seeks to escape the manipulating control of her stepfather. Starring Anne Skelly, Jamie Dornan, and Matthew Rhys. So, something has to be at the bottom of this list, you guys, and it is Death and Nightingales. Death and Nightingales, let's put it this way, it was a very pretty show to look at. It was a very beautiful show to look at. It was well done in general, but it was a little boring for me, you guys, unfortunately. And that's a shame because this is a terrific cast of actors and whatnot, especially Matthew Rhys. Matthew Rhys is perhaps the highlight of this 3-part series. He is kind of the, I guess, the antagonist, the villain, however you want to see him, of this series. He definitely has the best performance. And then I did really like Jamie Dornan's performance. It was really nice to see him in something like this. But then, yeah, a performance that I was a little disappointed with was Anne Skelly's performance. Because prior to watching Death and Nightingales, I had seen her performance in The Nevers. And I really loved her performance in The Nevers, and I was excited to see her in this show. And I found her performance to be very dull and monotone. And I think that's just how I felt about this entire 3-part series in general. It just came across as very dull and boring, and Yeah, monotone is the very best word I can kind of think of. So yeah, that's what puts at the very, very bottom of this list. Once again, a very gorgeous show to look at. Ireland is a beautiful country. But yeah, unfortunately, just the story and the characters and just things kind of going on, a lot of it was just a little too dull and boring for me personally. At number 31, Anne Boleyn. This three-part series follows the final months of Anne Boleyn's life as she seeks to regain King Henry VIII's affections and secure the future of her daughter, Elizabeth, starring Jodie Turner-Smith and Mark Stanley. I really wanted to love this three-part series for Anne Boleyn. Yeah, guys. Anyone who knows me, I love all things the Tudors, and Anne Boleyn is one of my favorite wives when it comes to the 6 wives of Henry VIII. But yeah, alas, you guys, I found this three-part series to be a little boring as well. And I don't know if it's the problem of the show itself, or if it was a problem with me as the viewer, if that makes sense. Because as I said, I do love all things the Tudors. I love everything having to do with Anne Boleyn. But I think it's kind of reached a point in my life that I have consumed so much material, whether that's TV shows or movies or books or nonfiction, in regards to the Tudors, that I know so much that whenever I do see a new adaptation or a series that is about the Tudors, that it's hard for something to be brand new and fresh and exciting for me. I don't know if it's kind of reached that point that I'm maybe getting a little bored with the Tudors. I don't know. So yeah, I found this series for me to be a tad bit boring. That's not to say that the performances were boring. I do think the performances were very well done. The actress playing Anne Boleyn, Jodie Turner-Smith, I think she did a very, very remarkable job with what she was given, I think. And then I really did like Mark Stanley as Henry VIII. I think he's one of the more believable depictions of Henry VIII that I've seen in a very long time. But yeah, I did. I think the unfortunate thing with this miniseries is that there was nothing new. It was doing nothing new. Everything that was going on, I was sitting and thinking to myself, well, okay, I've seen that in the Tudors. I've seen Natalie Dormer do that. I've seen Natalie Portman do that. I've seen Claire Foy do that. I've even seen Helena Bonham Carter do that. So yeah, unfortunately, there's just nothing new or thrilling or exciting. And I wish this show had maybe tried to take maybe some more risks or chance. I don't know. But yeah, alas, it wasn't really for me at the end of the day. At number 30, Clarice. Set in the early 90s, a year after The Silence of the Lambs, this 13-episode first season follows FBI agent Clarice Starling as she returns back to the field investigating crime, starring Rebecca Breeds and Michael Cudlitz. This first season of Clarice, you guys, I think showed some pretty good promise. I did really enjoy the first season overall in general. I do think there were some ups and downs and maybe some slight pacing issues throughout the season. Because there would be the episodes that were focused on what the overarching crime was. You know, that was introduced in episode 1, and then it would kind of continue throughout the season. There was like the overarching episodes that related to that, and then there were episodes in between that had nothing to do with the main crime. And sometimes some of those episodes could be a little hit or miss. So in general, this show will either be for you or not, just kind of depending on, I guess, what you're looking for with this show, I suppose. I guess something important to note. I think a lot of people might have gone into this show who were fans of the TV series Hannibal, and maybe were expecting to kind of get something similar that they saw in that TV show with Hannibal. Clarice is definitely its very own thing. It is definitely not trying to mimic the Hannibal TV series at all. It is very much entirely focused on Clarice, and they never even call Hannibal Lecter by name. He's always kind of just hinted at and teased at, but you, the viewer, know. And I guess also another quick disclaimer while I'm talking about Clarice. I did see the Hannibal TV show, but I have actually never seen the original Silence of the Lambs, you guys. Uh-oh. I've never seen that original movie. I have always wanted to, but I have just never taken the time to. The thing is, if you're like me, and you have never seen the original Silence of the Lambs, I think this show is still very easy to get into and still enjoy. Because the show, because it is, like my synopsis said, it is set about a year after the events of the original movie, set in the 90s. So it does give you backstory and like little brief flashbacks to some extent to explain what happened in the Silence of the Lambs. So that way, if you are confused, or even if you did see the movie but you need a quick refresher, it does give you flashback and dialogue that explains the past and what Clarice's traumas and issues are and whatnot. And as far as Clarice herself goes, I did really enjoy Rebecca Breed's interpretation of Clarice Starling. She definitely was not trying to mimic Jodie Foster, I don't think. I think she took maybe some cues here and there, to kind of help with her own performance. But yeah, she definitely was not mimicking or parodying or anything. She was maybe taking some influences from Jodie Foster. But yeah, Rebecca Breeds definitely does her own take on Clarice, and I loved her performance. She's a very strong, intelligent, independent woman. She's duty-bound. She wants to do the right thing. She wants to help others, even if it's at the cost of her own future and her own career. So yeah, Clarice was a good time. It wasn't like hugely amazing and wild and crazy, but it was still a good time in general, and it definitely left me wanting a season 2. At number 29, Letter for the King. This 6-episode season follows a group of teenagers as they go on a perilous mission to deliver a message to the king about an impending threat. Starring Amir Wilson, Ruby Sarkis, Fadia Graham, Jonah Lees, Jack Barton, and Heis Blom. So this is the first fantasy series on my list, you guys. I watched it earlier in the year of 2021. I really liked Letter for the King. I saw so many reviews that just totally bashed this show, and it wasn't that bad, you guys. Let me put it that way. It was not that bad. It was still a good time. It was still fun. It was still entertaining. And it was definitely a fantasy show targeted more towards a young adult audience, kids and young adults. For some reason, I don't know why, because, I got it from just watching the trailers, but for some reason, people went into the show expecting, ooh, another Game of Thrones, yay! This is not like Game of Thrones. It is definitely not comparable to Game of Thrones. It would definitely be much more comparable to something like Lord of the Rings, which is a lot more family friendly, if you get my drift. Like I said, it's definitely targeting more a kid and young adult audience, and you can see that from the cast. The cast is a huge cast of younger people. And I really liked Letter for the King. Has it been canceled? I'm confused. I don't think Netflix has said a damn thing about Letter for the King, if it's been canceled or renewed or not. I really don't know. It would be a shame if it didn't get renewed for another season, because I think there was definitely some interesting places the show could have gone, where the relationships were going and whatnot. But yeah, if it does only get the one season, I was satisfied with it. I think that's what I kind of felt primarily with this show, was just really satisfaction. It wasn't wild and crazy and mind-blowing. It wasn't like the new Lord of the Rings. I don't think anything can ever beat Lord of the Rings, really. But still, if you're looking for a good time, some simple entertainment, some simple joy and whatnot, kids going on this action-packed adventure, and learning to discover themselves and what they're capable of, because it's definitely a show saying, hey, just because you're small and you're a kid, you can still achieve great things, and you have the power to save the world. So I really thoroughly liked Letter for the King, and it was a great time. At number 28, The Pursuit of Love. Set before and during World War II in England, this 3-part series follows 2 cousins who are consumed with finding true love and happiness. Starring Lily James, Emily Beecham, Andrew Scott, Shazad Latif, and Dominic West. I quite liked The Pursuit of Love, you guys. There were things about it that I didn't quite like that much. Kind of primarily how it was directed. I don't know how it was kind of directed and written was a little strange and weird to me, because it often felt like a very chaotic show in some ways. I don't know if that was perhaps me. Sometimes it was just a little too chaotic, a little too much, and sometimes I just wanted things to kind of slow down, chill a little bit, kind of just rest with a situation, rest with some characters, you know? So yeah, this show, because of the chaotic nature of how it's kind of filmed and written, if that makes sense, it's going to be for you or it's not. But I did still really like The Pursuit of Love, and I'm still really glad I got to watch it. I am a sucker for all things with Lily James. She's always terrific in anything she is in. And really the core of this show is the relationship and the dynamic between the 2 cousins, as played by Lily James and Emily Beecham. They have such a trust and a bond and a respect, and their lives go in such 2 drastically different places. Like I said, it's the bulk of the show is set before and during World War II. It's a very tumultuous time period, and it's causing a lot of conflict and turmoil within the lives of these 2 young women, and their lives, their independence, the romances that they develop, you know, and yet even against all of that, even against the backdrop of war, the backdrop of them having romance and love interests and whatnot, the thing is, the heart and core of the show is all about the love that these 2 female cousins have for one another, and that female friendship and female bond because of that. So yeah, a thoroughly good time with The Pursuit of Love, and I did enjoy it. At number 27, Desperate Romantics. This 6-part limited series is set in London and tells the story of the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood who sought to challenge the world of art. Starring Aidan Turner, Rafe Spall, Samuel Barnett, Sam Crane, Amy Manson, and Tom Hollander. Okay guys, let's be real. I primarily watch this show because of my just all-consuming love and devotion for Aidan Turner, you guys. I'm just absolutely in love with that man. He's a gorgeous human being that God placed on this earth. Let's be real. So yeah, I actually found Desperate Romantics because somebody secretly I was like, hey, I'm going to upload all these episodes of Desperate Romantics on YouTube for free. So I was like, hey, someone illegally uploaded on YouTube. I'm going to watch it for free. Why not? I don't know if it's still up on YouTube, you guys. It could be deleted for all I know. You know how YouTube's been recently. But yeah, Desperate Romantics. Let's see. This show, I personally liked it. Okay? I personally liked it. Let's put it that way. But it's definitely not for everybody. This show was released back in maybe 2005, 2006, something like that. I'm trying to remember the release date of it. It's a fairly old show, okay? And it definitely shows, because oftentimes while you're watching this miniseries, it can be horribly offensive. It can be offensive about multiple different things, especially women. It does not treat the female characters in this show very well at all. This show is definitely kind of just a product of its time, that it was released back in the mid 2000s and whatnot. So some people may have a hard time consuming this show because it does feel a little dated, and it's not very politically correct in some places. It is rather offensive and really raunchy. I'll just gotta leave it at that. But yeah, I personally was fine with it. I got over some of the issues with it and just kind of let myself have a good time with it. It is, for the most part, a comedy, which I wasn't expecting, because, you know, when you tend to watch historical fiction shows, a lot of times they tend to be really dark and dramatic. So I was kind of expecting Desperate Romantics to be really dark and dramatic as well. I was not expecting it to be a comedy. It is pretty hilarious and wild, and like I said, it's a very raunchy show, very risque, and yeah, lots of sex and quite a bit of nudity going on in there. But yeah, still, it was a good fun time. I liked it. It made me laugh. Once again, Aidan Turner being God's gift to humanity, I would watch it for Aidan Turner alone. At number 26, The Irregulars. An 8-part season set in Victorian London that follows a group of teenagers who help solve mysterious supernatural crimes with Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. Starring Thadia Graham, Darcy Shaw, Jojo Macari, David McKell, and Harrison Osterfield. The Irregulars got canceled after 1 season, you guys, and I'm actually a little mildly upset. I personally liked The Irregulars. Was it perfect? Hell no. I think there were definitely quite a number of problems with the show. But for the most part, I quite liked it and I had a lot of fun with it. I'm just someone, when I watch TV shows, I'm a fairly relaxed viewer, and I tend to focus on just entertainment value sometimes more so than like quality, if that makes sense. As long as I'm entertained and having fun, that's kind of a sign of a good show for me sometimes. And that's what The Irregulars did. It was fun, it was entertaining, I was having a great time, and I do love all things relating to Sherlock Holmes. And I just found this to be a really fascinating, different take on what you typically see when it comes to Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. It was very, very different. I don't think I've ever particularly seen Holmes and Watson portrayed in the manner that they were. And even though this is a show that is set within the world of Sherlock Holmes, it's not really all about Sherlock and Watson. It is primarily about the teenagers that are involved. Because even within Arthur Conan Doyle's canon, Sherlock, he has like a group of kids and teenagers who he does coin as like the Irregulars and whatnot. And it's kind of their mission to kind of get into places that Holmes and Watson can't really get into. You know, sometimes they need help. They need outside help to get into a situation and to help solve crime. So this show is kind of like the origin story, how the Irregulars come to be. And what I also liked about the show, it is very heavily focused on like the supernatural. It has a very heavy supernatural element to it. And I really thought that was fun. And there's something about the show, I think if you like something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, for instance, this show kind of has a bit of that Buffy the Vampire Slayer quirkiness and humor and kind of almost silliness and absurdity, you know? So yeah, if you're looking for a good fun time, if you do love all things Sherlock Holmes, you want to see an origin to the Irregulars, and yeah, if you have like teenagers in your life and whatnot, I think this is a show that younger people would definitely thoroughly enjoy and get a kick out of and whatnot. At number 25, Dog Leash. Set in the 1970s, this 6-part series follows DCI Adam Dalgliesh as he fights crime around England. Starring Bertie Carvel, Jeremy Irvine, and Carlos Peer. I'm really glad I got around to watching Dog Leash. I primarily was kind of only interested in it because I do love Bertie Carvel. I previously saw him years ago in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, where he played the lead of Jonathan Strange, and yeah, I've just been really fascinated following Bertie Carvel's career ever since. I've watched him in quite a number of BBC productions and whatnot. So yeah, my primary interest in Dog Leash was definitely for Bertie Carvel himself. Yeah, I didn't even know, you guys, maybe this is a shame, but I didn't know this was based off of a series of books by P.D. James. And yeah, I didn't know that there was like a British series like years and years ago about this as well. So yeah, this is my very first experience with the story of Dog Leash and whatnot. But yeah, in general, I did really like this show. I also liked how it was I liked how it was set up as well, because it was 6 parts, but each crime had 2 episodes. So episodes 1 and 2 went together. Episodes 3 and 4 went together. And episodes 5 and 6 went together. And each of those 2 episodes, they were based off of whatever book they were based off of by P.D. James. So I liked how the show was divided up, essentially. You were almost watching a movie, and that's how I definitely recommend watching this show if you do decide to watch it. I definitely recommend watching episodes 1 and 2 together, and then, the next day watch 3 and 4, the next day watch 5 and 6. I definitely think it benefits watching it that way, almost as if you're watching kind of a movie in a sense. And the thing is, what's also great, you don't really necessarily have to watch the episodes in order. I don't think, like, if you want to watch episodes 5 and 6 first, it's probably okay. They don't really have elements that carry over too much, I don't think. And yeah, I really loved Bertie Carvel's performance in this. He plays Adam Dalgleish as rather quiet and reserved. But you can see that he's thinking, as murders are happening, as crime is happening, you can see that he's thinking and calculating and trying to put the pieces together. And that's almost like his special superpower, that people almost kind of, people almost kind of ignore him, and they don't think he's maybe a good detective or something, He's very quiet, and he's able to kind of think behind the scenes, and he's able to read people very clearly, I think. Adam Dalgleish is definitely very, very intelligent. He can see right through people for the most part, and that makes him a really good detective, I think. And I did, for the most part, each 2 episodes, I was thoroughly engaged with each murder mystery that was going on, and how the plots would thicken and intensify, and yeah, who would the suspect be, I always liked trying to guess who the murderer was and whatnot. So yeah, I definitely recommend Dalgleish if you haven't gotten around to it, if you love kind of historical fiction, mystery crime, thriller sort of things. At number 24, The Wheel of Time. Season 1 follows a sorceress named Moraine who comes across a group of young men and women who, one of which, may possess the ability to either restore or destroy their world. Starring Rosamund Pike and Daniel Henney. Oh, you guys, Wheel of Time was interesting. I'm still not quite sure how I feel about it, to be quite honest. I'm still kind of trying to process my feelings for the Wheel of Time, because I feel like I have some complicated feelings for it. For the most part, I did like it. Where a lot of my more negative feelings for the Wheel of Time come from, I do feel like the first half of the season was just a little way too slow for me, and I kind of would get a little bored, and I just kept thinking, okay, where is this going, but I do feel like the last half of the season was actually the strongest, and I do feel like I was really starting to open up to the world and to the characters and whatnot, and I started kind of relaxing and having a lot more fun time with it and whatnot. And once again, any fantasy show that's been coming out over the past couple years since Game of Thrones ended, it's like every single review feels the need to be like, ooh, the next Game of Thrones, blah, blah, And once again, kind of the same with when I was talking about Letter for the King earlier, the Wheel of Time is definitely much more comparable to the Lord of the Rings. It's like, I feel like everybody forgets about the Lord of the Rings, and everyone always constantly thinks about Game of Thrones. It's like, well, there is Lord of the Rings, you guys, and things like Narnia, So yeah, Wheel of Time, definitely way more comparable to something like Lord of the Rings, for sure. Especially with the fact that Rosamund Pike's character, Moraine, she's a sorceress. She comes across this group of young men and women. She thinks one of them has this power that they can help, hopefully restore the nature of their world and whatnot, because darkness has kind of fallen and eclipsed the world and whatnot, and there's like an evil force out there. And it does, it very much it makes me think about like the Fellowship of the Ring, for instance. Moraine is like the equivalent of Gandalf, and then the young people are kind of the equivalent of like the hobbits and whatnot, as silly as that might sound. And yeah, they're trekking across the globe with a goal and a mission and whatnot. So in general, I did have a fun time with the show. I do just wish it was a little bit more high speed and perhaps a little more action packed in the first half. I think I needed the world building to be a little bit more clear as well, because I feel like in the first couple episodes there was a lot being thrown out there and tossed out at me as the viewer, and I was often feeling very overwhelmed and a little confused, and I still never quite got a hang of everybody's names, to be quite honest. I had to keep getting on IMDb to look at all the characters and what their names were and try to kind of get them pronounced in my head and whatnot. But still, I had a fine, overall, entertaining time with the Wheel of Time, and I'm definitely pretty excited for another season, and I'm kind of curious how my feelings will grow over time as the show progresses, and I'm definitely open to continuing to love the show and to really latch myself onto these characters. At number 23, The Nevers. Set in Victorian London, this 6-part first season follows a group of people with extraordinary abilities who are pursued by those who seek to control or eliminate them. Starring Laura Donnelly, Anne Skelly, Amy Manson, Olivia Williams, and Pip Torrens. Ooh, you guys, The Nevers. I did a full review on my thoughts and feelings on The Nevers, and I feel like in my review for The Nevers, I feel like I came across as rather harsh about it. I do feel like I have a love-hate relationship with The Nevers, because there were things about it that I was absolutely just really thoroughly loving, but then other things that I was like, dear God, this show is a freaking hot mess. And even though I have had time to kind of process The Nevers months after the fact, I do still feel like the show is a tad bit still of a hot mess in places. And I do think, unfortunately, it had to do with the COVID-19 pandemic, because I think it put a lot of strain on their production, and it shows. It definitely shows that they had to kind of fast track and fast forward through things that they might have otherwise taken a lot more time and care with. So it definitely shows, in my opinion, how quickly wrapped up this show was, because some of the plot, some of the characters, things just kind of jump around and move around all over the place, and you're never really given quite clear explanations for things, and it is all very abrupt and fast and not much like connecting tissue, if that makes sense. So even though I do kind of still think the show is a hot mess, the thing is, I still, weirdly enough, liked it and enjoyed it, and I'm definitely going to still continue with it, because I think the world building is still very fascinating and interesting, and it is very kind of female-centric in some ways, with all these characters who have extraordinary abilities that make you think of like the X-Men, for instance, like X-Men set in the Victorian era, you know. I love kind of this alternative world, and this whole thing of, did they get these powers from aliens? What's going on there? And oh my God, you guys, this cast is absolutely remarkable. Just such a terrific cast of British actors and whatnot. You just need to watch it for the cast alone, because it's absolutely stunning. And yeah, it's not their fault that the show is a hot place and messes, you know, that's due to a lot of the issues with the writing. So yeah, at the end of the day, I think the show had a massive amount of writing issues. Like I said, I think unfortunately caused because of the chaos of the COVID-19 pandemic and whatnot. So I'm hoping future seasons, as things are kind of maybe calming down, hopefully the writers will have a lot more time to really focus and get this story to the place that it needs to be, because I think there's a lot of future potential for this show, and I'm excited to see where it's going. At number 22, Season 2 of Pennyworth. Set several months after the events of Season 1, Season 2 picks up with Alfred Pennyworth and his allies seeking to reclaim England from the nefarious Raven Union, who plan on using a deadly gas weapon to cause large-scale chaos and death. Starring Jack Bannon, Ben Aldridge, Emma Patz, Paloma Faith, and Jason Fleming. You guys, I am a sucker for all things when it comes to, like, the story of Batman, I guess. And I thoroughly love Pennyworth. I think Pennyworth is a sleeper hit show, you guys. There is not enough people watching this show, and it's an absolute freaking shame. If you love all things kind of set within the Batman universe, I shall say, I think you'll really like this show. You get Alfred Pennyworth. This is a young, hot version of Alfred Pennyworth, you know, before he becomes the butler of Bruce Wayne / Batman. You get to see the origins of Bruce Wayne's mom and dad, Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne. You get to see how the two of them get bond and get closer together. And yeah, kind of, will we eventually get a wee little baby Batman, you know, a little baby Bruce Wayne sometime in the future. So that's what I love about this show. It's set within the world of Batman, but really has nothing to do with Batman, because he doesn't even exist yet at the moment. But I absolutely love this origin for Alfred and Thomas and Martha. And what I love about this show as well, it takes place in England in, what is it? Is it the 60s or 70s? I'm trying to remember. I think it's like the 70s if I'm not mistaken. And it just provides this wonderful kind of almost noir mystery element to the show. It's beautifully filmed and directed and written and acted, and yeah, it can sometimes be a little silly and over the top because it is still kind of a superhero show at the end of the day. But I find this show just to be so fun and entertaining. Great performances. And once again, if you love all things set within the Batman universe, I think you're truly missing out on this show, because I think a lot of people might have heard about it and were like, oh, this sounds kind of stupid, I have no interest in it. But for me personally, I find it to be one of the more thoroughly entertaining superhero shows out there at the moment. At number 21, Leonardo. This 8-part season follows the rise of the famous artist Leonardo da Vinci and explores a fictional murder investigation where he is the prime suspect. Starring Aidan Turner, Matilda De Angelis, and Freddie Highmore. Uh-oh, another show with Aidan Turner, you guys. Y'all know how I feel about Aidan Turner, my man. About Leonardo da Vinci, you guys. This is another show on my list. Oh boy, the reviews were pretty bad. But it's not that bad. Why does everyone think this show is that bad? It is not that bad, you guys. Is it perfect? No. It is definitely not perfect. I think there are quite a number of some pacing issues with the show, and I think more than anything, what a lot of people had an issue with this show is kind of the fictional murder investigation involving Leonardo da Vinci and whatnot. It is kind of odd and peculiar in some ways, because I went into the show kind of thinking, oh, this is going to kind of be like an origin to Leonardo da Vinci, you know, kind of being a lot more historically accurate and whatnot. And it's definitely not very historically accurate. I think that's a big thing people had an issue with this show. It takes a lot of wild and crazy liberties. And for me personally, I'm okay with that. As I've mentioned, I'm a very relaxed viewer when it comes to historical fiction. As long as I'm entertained and having fun, that's all I care about. And I'm willing to look past inaccuracies, because writers do what they do with reason and intent. They're trying to tell a fun, entertaining story. That is their primary objective. If they have to sacrifice accuracy, then so be it, you know, because sometimes accuracies are not the best course of action when it comes to a historical show, because sometimes it can make it very dull and boring if you go too accurate. But yeah, I liked the show in general. I thought Aidan Turner's performance was really good. I loved the leading lady, played by, let me look at her name because I have trouble pronouncing it, Matilda de Angelis. The one performance I had an issue with, you guys, Freddie Highmore. I think Freddie Highmore was terribly miscast in this show. Very, very terribly miscast. They should have cast somebody else. Freddie Highmore, I know he's a grown man in his 20s, but he looks like a teenager, you guys. And I just had a very, very difficult time believing him in the role that he had in the show, because he was kind of playing like a investigator, I guess you can say. He was trying to kind of figure out the big crime involving Leonardo da Vinci, you know, trying to prove if Leonardo da Vinci was innocent or guilty and whatnot. So yeah, I had a massive issue with Freddie Highmore. But yeah, I did like Aidan Turner's performance as Leonardo da Vinci. He very much plays Leonardo as a very eccentric man. If you're watching this show expecting him to almost kind of be like Ross Poldark from the Poldark TV show, he is definitely not that. He is very eccentric. He is a little bizarre and over the top. He is a little lackluster on like feeling, you know? He'll kind of say and do things and upset people, offend people. He's not a perfect character at all. You can kind of dislike Leonardo sometimes on occasion, and I kind of like that, his flaws and his imperfections and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I do love the relationship that he has with the leading female character in this show. It's kind of the heart and the core of the show, and kind of some of the actions that he takes and some of the things that he does and whatnot. But yeah, Leonardo overall was a fun time, and I liked it, and there's a season 2 coming. I'm definitely watching it. So you guys, that is it for part 1 of me ranking my favorite historical fiction and TV shows that I watched in 2021. As these videos go through, just let me know how you felt about some of these shows, if you did happen to watch them. And yeah, feel free to tell me your own personal rankings, especially once you finish the entire series of videos here. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.